Very good evening to all of you. Today, myself, Dr. Saurabh Sikdar, will discuss about the structure and important characteristics of Parameecium. Parameecium is a small unicellular organism which is under kingdom Protista and subkingdom Protozoa. As it is microscopic, so you can't find it with your naked eye. Whenever you want to see the details about the morphology of Parameecium, you have to take help of a compound microscope. And under microscope, you can see the morphological structures and details of Parameecium. Although throughout the world, there are lots of different species are found of Parameecium, but still the common species of Parameecium is Parameecium caudatum. Along with that, another very exceptional species of Parameecium is Parameecium aurelia. So, in this lecture, I will discuss the Parameecium, its systematic position, its habitat, its structure, differential functions, and their important features. Parameecium, as we know, Parameecium is a very small microorganism as it is under kingdom Protista and subkingdom Protozoa. And as it is under subkingdom Protozoa, so you all can already know about the Parameecium is unicellular because we know Parameecium, like all protozoans, are unicellular. That means they contain single cell, but they are living. They live, or their habitat is fresh water, and they can easily move or they can swim within the fresh water. They can digest food and they can also reproduce. As we know, they belongs to the phylum, belongs to the kingdom Protista, which is the group or family of similar living microorganisms. And there is obvious question, that is, what does a Parameecium look like? That means, what is the external structure or morphological structure of Parameecium? The Parameecium is an oval, and the structure is very alike with slipper. That means the common, in Hindi it is called chappal, and chappal or slipper like structure of this microorganism. That's why sometimes it may be known as, or maybe the nickname of Parameecium is slipper organism. Now, the other structure of the Parameecium may be rounded at the front or top and pointed at the back or bottom. The pellicle, which is stiff but elastic membrane that gives the Parameecium a definitive shape outside, but allows some small changes over the years. Covering the pellicle, there are many tiny hairs or hair-like projections, which are the locomotory organ of Parameecium, that is called cilia. And in this picture, you can easily see the anterior and the posterior part of the Parameecium body. Here you can see the anterior part, which is obviously narrow. Then the posterior part is certain broader. Outside of their body, there are some hair-like projections you can easily see in this picture, that are known as cilia, which is act as locomotory organ. Within their body, there is a small nuclei that is called micronuclei, and the large nuclei that is called macronuclei. So Parameecium caudatum, like all species, contain one micro and one macronuclei within their body, within the cytoplasm. But there is an exception, that is Parameecium aurelia, which has two micronuclei and one macronuclei. So in case of all species of Parameecium, they contain two nuclei, but in case of Parameecium aurelia, they contain three nuclei. It is the exception. Along with that, at the anterior part and at the posterior part of their interior body cytosol, they contain some star-like structures which are known as contractile vacuoles, and on the basis of their position they are known as anterior contractile vacuole and posteriorly present called posterior contractile vacuole. Along with these, there are some interior part pipe-like structures. First, at the anterior part of this pipe-like structure, there is a groove that is called oral groove, which is extended somewhat in the interior part of the cytosol, and more extended pipe-like part extended more interior of the cytoplasm. As we know, the protozoans, they contain two types of cytoplasm. Interiorly or interior, most interior cytosol is known as sol or cytosol, and the outer granular, they are known as cytogel or gel or jelly-like structure. So when the interior or most interior part of the oral groove extended most interiorly, it is known as the cytopharynx, which act as the gut or digestive system of their body, and it is opened up most interiorly like a small vacuole or small food pocket, that is called food vacuole. And when with the help of the oral groove they intake the food materials when they swim or present in the water body, they intake a lot microorganisms or planktons and not feed on that on the same time. Rather, they stored all of the assumed food materials within the interior part of the food vacuoles, and by the formation of many of the food vacuoles, they spread it throughout the cytoplasm, and when they need, they assume it again, and with the cytopharynx they can easily digest and they assimilate all the nutritive materials. And after the assimilation, whatever the waste materials they produced along with the water, they released out through the another part of their body, that is called cytoproct or anus. Cytoproct is the most common for them, but it is actually work like the anus. That means they released the waste materials from the body with the small pore present at the posterior part of their body, that is called cytoproct. Uh, and the both-sided contractile vacuole, they are chiefly involved to release excess amount of water from their body. So these all are the important cell organelles along with their morphological structures spread throughout their body, which are equally give some morphological importance of them regarding their habitat, that is fresh water. Now, the most interior structure of their body and some important features of them like this, that is called trichocyst, and it is the spike-like structure which present at the interior depth of the cilia and outside of their body. And these ciliary structures, they are look like some harpoon-like, and interior most part which is actually present most interiorly of their body, that is through the plasma membrane they enter more depth of the cytoplasm, but outside they contain this type of structures which sometimes involve to kill or paralyze the microorganisms. It is allied with the cilia, and along with that, these are some important parts of their body. I have already mentioned among all of these, like pellicle, cilia, oral groove, cell mouth or buccal groove, anal pore or cytoproct, contractile vacuole, cytoplasm, trichocyst, micronuclei, macronuclei, etc. Now, why they are known as Ciliata or Ciliophora? Because the phylum of them is Ciliophora, because they have the locomotory organ, that is hair-like projection known as cilia, and as these are present throughout their body from outside, on the basis of the presence of cilia, they are under the last phylum of subkingdom protozoa, that is called Ciliophora or Ciliata. Now, the movement of Paramoecium, as we know, they are living in the fresh water. So, as they have the beautiful or very important type of cell organelle, rather it is known as the locomotory organ, the cilia. So, they can easily swim within their body. And if we look the big grasses with the in the presence of wind, they can move at right hand to left hand or left hand to right hand, like that, with the like a oar of the boat, like the oar of a boat. They can swim forward. When they move forward, their cilia move behind, and when they move backward, the oar move forward. So we, like the movement of oar in a boat, they also try to swim across the water when they try to move forward, like the movement of the oar in the boat. The movement of cilia also helps to move them to move forward, backward, right hand side or left hand side. Now a big question is that how does a paramecium move? Actually, the paramecium cannot move. Rather, it is known as swimming, or they can locomote. So, as we know, as I already told, that with the help of the cilia or ciliary movement, they can move forward or backward or right hand side or left hand side, or making some angles, like the oar which is capable to move the boat at different parts or different angles in the water. Like that, they can also swim within the water, and that's why this movement, or rather this type of locomotion, is known as ciliary movement of paramecium. And this is the cilia I have pointed out here, which is present outside of their body, originated from the plasma membrane, which act as a oar in the water. They move, and that's why the total paramecia they can move forward. Now the feeding behavior of paramecium. As we know, they are the single celled. So the single celled organism, with the help of the oral groove during their presence in the fresh water, the water along with some planktons, they entered, all they entered through the buccal groove and through the cytopharynx, cytostome, then cytopharynx. They entered within their body by making some food vacuoles, and on the demand of food to digest, they can assume the single food vacuoles through the cytopharynx, and that's why they can easily get some nutritive materials or nutrition within their body, within the single cell. Now the excretion, as we know, there are the two processes of excretion. Number one, the cytoproct is there, the small anal aperture is there at the posterior part of their body, I have already mentioned, which is very helpful to release their waste materials or undigested food materials or waste materials from the body. But as they live in the water during feeding, excess amount of water also enter within their body. So when they try to release their excess water from the body, the anterior and the posterior contracted vacuoles, they are involved equally to release from any parts of their body the excess water. That's why they can maintain the water balance within their body. Now the very important part is the reproduction. As we know, paramecium do both type of reproduction, that is asexual and sexual reproduction. And for this asexual reproduction, simple by binary fission, they can form from single paramecium to 2, and then 4, then 8, then 16. This multiplication, it is called the asexual reproduction, and where nuclear changes is not done, and only cytoplasmic division is there, and that's why from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, like multiplication. And with the help of this type of binary asexual reproduction, they can produce new paramecium. But other than this asexual reproduction, they also do the sexual reproduction, and this known as conjugation. And this type of conjugation, for making the conjugation, that is sexual reproduction, and they have to be present, the two partners. As we know, the sexual reproduction, this occurred from the single organism to two, and then the fourth, and multiplication. But for the conjugation or sexual reproduction, they have to be present in two or a pair, and from the different strains, and they should be different strains, from not the same strain. As they are not sexually differentiated, but the strain should be there, that is from different fathers and mothers. The offsprings, they when adult or mature, then they reproduce, and they are called the plus strain and minus strains. And on the basis of the presence of these two, through these oral groups on the ventral surfaces, they exchange the nuclei, that is micro to macro and macro to micro, from the opposite one, and they mix to produce the nuclei, single nuclei, and they starts the mitotic division, and then they again mix, and through these processes, like this manner, exchange of nucleus through the cytoplasmic bridges along the oral groove on the ventral surfaces, they can easily make the typical 8 paramecium from a single conjugation. And this conjugation process is very important for all of you, specifically the students, for your exam purpose. As you know, the conjugation of paramecium is very vital and very unique process. And what is the significance of paramecium conjugation is also very important, as because it is deals with basically the production of new strains, which is genetically something different from the other strains. As because in case of the asexual reproduction, there will be no nuclear changes, so there will be no production of strains. As the sexual reproduction mainly involves the exchange of nuclear materials, so it is very important to making new strains. And if the new strains will produce, the evolution will may consider themselves to come upright and make your existence for the next future. So it is the very important phase. That's why the paramecium reproduction, specifically the sexual reproduction, is very important. Along with that, the exceptional species, that is Paramoecium aurelia, as they have the 2 micronuclei and 1 macronuclei, and they do some differential conjugation or sexual reproduction. They have no need to presence of pair or the dual plus or minus strains. They can easily make the sexual reproduction or conjugation by the single organism, as they contain the 2 micro and 1 macroorganism. It is some exceptional type of conjugation, and that's why it is known as autogamy or autoconjugation. That means occurred in single species or single strain. And last of all, the movement of cilia, as it is very exceptional or very special character. The cilia, the movement when occur in the water in the form of circular movement, they can move 60 millimeter per hour. The cilia can move 60 millimeter per hour. So other than that, metabolism or the food or release of excretory material, or I have already mentioned. Thank you to all of you to make some patience to take this class, or make this lecture smooth. And if there is any question, please ask me, and or make some question in my email ID. My email ID is mailshowrobin@gmail.com. So if you can have any query, you please contact with me with this mail ID. So thank you all of you. We will meet you again with some new lectures on zoology. Thank you all.